Hi, thanks for tuning in. Please make sure to like and share my official YouTube videos, and make sure to go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. Additionally, make sure you subscribe to my official YouTube channel. So today is the 27th of April 2022, and so I'm going to go over a few different situations which some people who understand technology have this basic understanding. And then there are those who don't necessarily know this. So there are those who understand that social media is a way to communicate. There is a problem with this, though, when it comes to social media, because there is a distinctive difference between in-person, face-to-face in-person, and through social media. Some people who have that intellectual capability, because they have that knowledge and that understanding that when utilizing social media, you are utilizing social media. That translates to individuals who post things through social media are communicating to whatever individuals that they might know in person, face-to-face, in person, whichever capacity of, and or obviously it being on the internet, the knowledge that there is the capacity that others could see it. For example, you have the cell phone capability that has a camera in it. So you could take a picture or a video in reference to the stuff that's on a screen, for one example. That's just one example. So I have been involved with many communities across the state of Texas, most specifically from the years of 2000 through 2013, and then 2019 through 2021. I haven't ever hidden that. Those different communities that I've been a part of, I've accepted that a long time ago, especially since this is 2021. Additionally, I was born and raised in New Jersey in the 1980s. I grew up going around the state of New Jersey into New York, not just New York City, but New York State, as well as overall in regards of Pennsylvania. And yes, the larger cities, but also some of the smaller areas, depending on the population. And up and down the East Coast in certain references, whether in regards of a vacation, such as through Old Tenet Presbyterian Church, to the stereotype. There's one of two stereotypes for the East Coast regarding the Northeast. First one, most well known, is obviously Disney. Old Tenet Presbyterian Church had been a part of a handbell choir competition. And so shortly after Hurricane Andrew is when we had gone from New Jersey to Florida. So that's one of the most well-known in an overall in the United States of America of a location in Florida. The second most well-known area in the overall United States of America is the Florida Keys. However, in the tri-state area, the most well-known is Boca. That is the most well-known area for the tri-state location, especially New Jersey and New York City. It don't matter what part of New Jersey, you have heard of Boca. You have met somebody that was like, Boca is beautiful. There is nobody who was born and raised in New Jersey that has not met a minimum of 5 people who talks about how beautiful Boca is, because Boca That's the place to be. Boca is fantastic. It's near the water. I might be taking some people back in time. It's undeveloped at this point in time in the 1980s, but it's gonna turn out beautiful because it's near the ocean. And you don't know how beautiful Boca's gonna turn out because it is a beautiful city. Those who remember the late 1980s in the tri-state area, and I know you know, especially the early 1990s. Boca is fantastic. It's going to be so beautiful when it gets all built up. It's gonna be fantastic. It's beautiful in Boca. The sun is always shining. Yes, and then, you know, if it rains a little bit, you just wait a few minutes. Then it's gonna be beautiful Boca all over again. I'll be a different view with the little dewdrops from the rain. It'll remind you go to the ocean. Anybody? At that point, you don't have to even have been born and raised in New Jersey. You could have been in high school or college or worked in New Jersey, and you heard this. You know this whole spiel of the, yes, it's near, it's not just around the corner to go to Disney, but it's nearby if you want to go with the family. Go and take your grandchildren and go to, and then you can just go right back to Boca. Go out to the beach because it's beautiful. For those who know, I'm sure there are others in different areas, but yes, I've been to the 3 stereotypes of Florida in that regard. In my childhood, I went out to Disney as far as that Orlando thing with my biological mother and my biological sister. It would have been cooler if it was with my biological father more often, but you know, he was practicing for the handbell choir thing. So where my biological sister, you know, she got to pick a bunch of stuff and it's like, ugh, do we have to go there? The only ride that she picked that I liked was the haunted house. That should let you know. So remember, I wasn't allowed, even at that time, to see anything above a G rating, okay? And my biological sister picks out the ride, let's go to the haunted house. Yes, actually, I agree. Let's do that. And at that point in time, when we get in line for this, my biological sister goes, why are you excited? And I said, because I have a feeling you need to pay attention. I have a feeling you need to acknowledge a few things. And so where my biological mother was like, oh, are you sure? You know, it could be scary. It's the haunted house in that regard. I'm like, let's go. Yes, let's go. This will be so much fun. This will be great. This will be great. Which should give you a sign in that regard. Because, you know, there's my biological mother, which every day for a week, a minimum of 3 times a day, she had to ride It's a Small World, which translated to, I had to go on that ride. And, you know, one time, okay, fine, for the whole trip, but no. 3 times a minimum per day. So, you know. The main people who I'm sure very much comprehend where it's like are people who work at Disney and specifically that particular ride. And so and that was my biological mother's favorite ride throughout all of Disney. No, all the other rides that could have been or whatever. No. Let's go to It's a Small World again. Do we have to? Like, I really don't want to. We do, like, there was a day we went either 5, 6, or 7 times on that ride. Yeah, no. No. That is cruel and unusual punishment. In my opinion, I don't think there's anybody who could disagree with that, in all honesty. But, you know, Dyfus? That wasn't the reason why, but it's a good one. As far as if you really think about it, and one of the times on the ride, it broke down. And so all of the rides came to a stop, and we were in the middle of the, and they didn't turn off the music. They kept it going. Excuse me, could you do me a favor and turn that on? This is, ugh. So shortly after we go on whatever number time of whatever day, of It's a Small World, my biological sister goes, let's go to the haunted house. Yes! Now, as a precursor to this, let me explain. I had been in Asher Holmes Elementary School with my biological sister. She's 4 years younger than me. And for the entire time of my childhood, I didn't bring up my buck gum or my buck poke. Not because of the shame, there's nothing to be ashamed of. More along the lines of Asians who understand that you don't really bring that up. It's not a disrespect, it's an actual respect regarding that. So for those who don't understand why I had issues with name dropping, this is the starting point. Because when it comes to name dropping, I had to deal with certain things because of that. And that's why especially with Asians, it doesn't matter which type of Asian, there is that semi-knowledge that if you bring that up, especially in the 1980s, but into the 1990s, you don't bring up that you have a buck gong and a buck poo unless you're trying to do something, depending on who you are, or in my case, defending. Not denying, but because of, especially for those who know in the 1990s, what was going on in those particular references. So where I had to deal with the fact that my biological sister had brought up that. So in essentially 3rd grade, you know, I'm walking around one day and some of the Asians, and we, in Asher Holmes Elementary School, we actually had Chinese school on Saturdays. My buck gong and my buck poo would not allow me to be a part of that. My own biological mother and biological father didn't want me a part of that either, but mainly because of what my buck gong and my buck poo had informed of. They didn't agree with the education as far as that was concerned because of the language aspects. And so, and my buck gong having been Cantonese and my buck poo having been half Cantonese, half Mandarin, those who understand that from China, most specifically, understand that particular difference. And so, within not even 3 weeks of school when I was in 3rd grade. I have a bunch of Asians in every grade, anywhere from 3rd grade all the way to 6th grade, as well as, essentially kindergarten, but more so 1st grade to 3rd grade, coming up to me and being like, "So you have a bakung and a bakpo? Hi." And it's, "Where did you hear that?" That was my response. Where did you hear that? It wasn't, yeah, I do. It was, "Where did you hear that?" "Oh, your sister told us." Why are you touching me? What do you want? Why do you want to know whether or not I have a bakpo or a bakgong? What does that mean to you? Because depending on who you are, what do you want? Because I don't make deals in those references. Don't make that mistake. And so, find out, of course, it's not my biological father who brought that up, because obviously, not my biological mother, to my surprise, my biological sister. And so, one day, for those who remember, so my 3rd grade class was walking wherever we were walking to, but we were passing by, which is an irony in regards of my artwork. We were going from the gym area to wherever we were going as far as that, and then the kindergarten class was walking wherever they were going, and just so happened there's my biological sister. And so, we've got so you've got my side where we're going this way, you got Patricia's class who's going this way, and I just grabbed her by the back of her shirt and, "What did you say?" And everybody in my class was just, "Susan," and it's like, "I didn't give you permission to whatever," and my biological sister starts crying, "Oh, why are you baby? Why did you bring this up?" And so her class is like, "Ah!" And it's like, I will take all you whoop your ass, you don't even know." And so all of the little kindergartners were like, "Her sister's cute." It's like, you don't know. So I have my biological sister by the back of her shirt like this, and I'm just, and then she goes rolling. Deal with this when we get back to the house. And my class, we just keep walking, and the people who were in front of me, they started walking faster. The people who were walking behind me were just like, because I remember looking back, I was like, "What's going on?" They were a little bit, they were more than a few yards behind, and it's like, "What's wrong?" And they're like, "Didn't know you had that in you." Woo! So, get back to the house later, and of course by then my biological sister had run her mouth. I dealt with a few things regarding my biological father, had to explain later, and it was as it was. And then it was, "Well, why are you bringing up," and all this sort of stuff. Well, remember, my bakpo, which, is my biological sister's Chinese grandmother, because she had never allowed her to call her bakpo. That was a big thing. She did not want my biological sister ever calling her bakpo. And that was one of the issues in childhood, where it was, "Why does Susan get to call you bakpo?" Because I am to her. It's who I am. That was the big deal as far as it was concerned. "Well, why are you treating me different?" Because, and as my bakpo and bakgong explained, because we're not your bakpo, we're not your bakgong, we're hers. Understand that. And so, of course, my biological mother, oh, well, you need to treat them equally. The irony to have that, for those who know and understand that. And no. She needs to understand her place. And oh, well, she looks more Asian and blah, blah. That doesn't mean anything at all. That's the least of any concerns. It doesn't matter as far as that is. And so it was a whole whatever. So fast forward to It's a Small World. And then the haunted house ride. And so my biological sister and I, for those who know this particular ride from the 1990s, it was one of those little circular backing with the little chair, and it was 2 people per ride as far as the whatever. And so my biological sister's in the seat next to me, and I'm sitting on the left side, and go through, and they've got the little mirrors and all that sort of stuff. And in one area, this really tall guy sitting in between us. And my biological sister starts freaking out. And I'm just sitting there like this, like, oh, this is what it is. Okay. I thought it was going to be something scarier. Well, in my arms, in the little mirror, is this little baby. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. This is an irony when it comes to my son having bit my biological sister. So I have this little baby in my arms, and it's like, oh, well, look at you. Aren't you cute? And it opens its mouth, and it's got these, fangs, and it's got drool that comes in. It's like, oh, well, look at you. Aren't you cute? And this big, tall, whatever that's in the view of the mirror for that particular ride, he looks down at me holding the baby, and he smiles. And my biological sister, it's so scary. Well, that guy in the ride aspect, he looks over at my biological sister, and he, and all this, I'm just sitting there, this is a great ride, this is awesome. This is fantastic. This is, when she's crying, this is the best ride ever. This is fantastic. You know what? I don't actually mind going to It's a Small World after this. This seems ideal. This was me as a child. So, I can be a little twisted, I can acknowledge that. And so, the rest of the ride goes on, get off the ride, and this guy, who apparently was this tech guy, he runs out and he's like, what did you do? And it's like, I walked out here. I was breathing. What did I do? That wasn't supposed to be in the whatever. I didn't do anything. I just was sitting in the right. What am I supposed? Apparently, the baby part wasn't something that was in the programming or something. And it was, well, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't do anything. And so my biological sister had nightmares from that. It's fantastic. I slept like a baby, which is an irony. The more her thing is like, oh, I can relax. This is awesome. This is beyond a sibling rivalry, if you can't tell by now. And so, so the irony is one of those, hey, let's go whatever and stuff like that. Well, my biological father, he's been doing the handbell thing. And, because my biological mother didn't want to give the perception of whatever, it was one of those, oh, Susan, what ride do you want to go on? Space Mountain. And the complaint that occurred was, well, that's scary and whatever. You mean you're not going to go on it? Awesome. That's fantastic. Let's do that. And Mike, my biological father, who has no idea that I've been dealing with this the entire week. This is the only day that he had to actually go on rides and stuff like that. I'm like, let's go to Space Mountain. My biological sister was too short to ride it, and not that she wanted to anyway. It's like, this will be awesome. This will be great. Can actually have fun, go do something that's different in comparison to It's a Small World. And so he had no idea how many times, just the whole week, a minimum of 3 times a day, 7 days, 6 nights. So for 6 days, It's a Small World, a minimum of 3 times a day. Sure, I look as I do in comparison. Just saying. And so, we do the Space Mountain. It's like, that was, I thought it was a long ride in comparison, obviously, but it was like, yay! This is great! This is awesome! Best ride ever, compared to especially every other ride that I had been on, because like whatever, as far as that's concerned. And so it was as it was. So that's one stereotype, of course, going to Disney as far as that's concerned. And it's like, okay, great. We get back to church and a bunch of people are like, did you have fun? And it's like, when I went on Space Mountain, that was great. The rest of it, I mean, Anna and Patricia were there, so, there's the rest of that. Which, the irony, a bunch of the congregants were like, yes, we know. It's okay. One day, it'll get better for you. The sooner, the better. The soonest, the best, please. So, there's a lot of people in the 1980s and 1990s in the tri-state area especially that were exposed to social media in the capacities of emails, computer games, and video games to a degree. Not to the same level as now, but you had more of an option in those references because, especially in New Jersey, especially in the area of New Jersey, we had Tamagotchis. For those who know what I'm talking about, we had Tamagotchis in 1st grade. Like most people, by the time we were in 1st grade in Asher Holmes Elementary School, people had multiple Tamagotchis. So I didn't really get into it because I had an actual dog. So I didn't really get into the Tamagotchi thing. It just wasn't something that I was into. I really didn't play video games anymore because after having been at my babysitter's house, as far as Sunny Sonia and Joe Jose, their children who were in high school had Nintendo and Sega Genesis. So by the time I got into kindergarten, it's like, it's pretty much a combination of, a few games, and I already played those, and those who are into video games, that obsessive thing where you're like, and I will win, and I will do, that was kindergarten. Preschool sort of time frame where it's like, yes, and I will kill you, because, so, I'm just saying, I really liked Mortal Kombat. Maybe there's a subconscious reference on that as far as the ocean and a few situations regarding, Yeah, Space Mountain seems like a great ride. Let's totally do that. Yes, that seems ideal. Yes, 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 which is the irony. Only then, only after going to Space Mountain, as far as that was concerned, when we would go to Freehold Raceway Mall, where I want to go to the arcade. And, well, why do you want to go to the arcade? I want to go to the arcade. And so the two arcade games that were my jam were the alligator, for those who know, with the little mallet, the ow, 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 that one. Top score. That's SARMs. I actually broke by accidentally, total accidental, when, using the mallet, for those who know. So my biological sister walked up behind me and was like, "Are you done yet?" Bam! And yeah, no, I'm good. I apologize. She pissed me off. That mouth went. Take a hint. And so, which is an irony when you take into consideration the haunted ride with the little, as far as those teeth are concerned. So I was like, yeah, it is what it is, what can I say? And so the other one was X-Men, for those who know the arcade version. And there was only one female. Well, that was like the one time where I was like, all right, I suppose that's fine. And so, what was it? I think it was Dazzler. I think that was the name of the character, and it was like, I wouldn't ever have to put quarters back in once I started. It was just stand there and defeated the boss, yes! And so like guys would come in and it's like, I'm already on level 7. I don't know if you want to join this. I'm on. Send in storm. Yes. Combination, whatever, totally, yes. Boom! Yes, I was that child, and yes. I'm just saying, for those who understand and know in those particular references. So yeah, that was after Space Mountain, where I was like, you know what, I want to go to the arcade. I'm gonna go practice to go handle some business, because I remember, and I'm just gonna do this, as a little warm up in regards of, don't make me have to. Don't make me have to. I will handle business. I could make the joke in those references. So then, but also knowing, because for those who know the arcade game system, you have those score levels where you could put, it was usually 3 initials, and that was what it was. I think what was it? I got something like, was it 1 million something as far as the top score on that one? And it was pretty high. It was like 1,700,000 something another thousand, whatever it was for the top score. And it's like, that's right. I'll walk around Freehold Raceway Mall. You don't know. It is what it is. That's right, totally, whatever. That's cool. For those who know. Yeah, that's right, that's me. Yeah, I am BAT. That's right, what's up? That's right. That's right. Bow down, that's right, I handled that, that's right. And so, I was that much of a dork, it's fine, I can acknowledge it. And so, But there's that version of social media to a degree. It's not the same as an email. It's not the same as online sort of stuff, but it is an example of a version of social media because you have that literal media. You have that. And so, there were times where I'd walk in and I'd see people, on the X-Men thing, and it's like, and this is the dork that I was as a teenager at this point. So I'd lean up against the machine and just be like, hey, Sarah, who's the top scorer? And usually it was a bunch of teenage males at that point in time. They're like, whatever, it's whoever of this, whatever, and it's so bad, and rah, 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 we're gonna totally whatever. Oh yeah, you think so? Yeah, and pretend this is the, little X-Men thing, and it's like, yeah, no, that's fine. No. What would you do if, because there are those who know this particular arcade type of teenager, and I was like, so what would you do if you, got to meet that top score person or whatever? I'd totally be like, look at whatever, rah, rah, rah. Oh, yeah, well, what would you do? I'd tell that guy, blah, blah, blah. Well, what if it wasn't a guy? Let me tell you, each time I did that, they all stopped. What do you mean? Like, it was something that they hadn't ever taken into consideration, that it couldn't be a male, as far as I was concerned. So I was just, well, what's the problem, fellas? What's up? What would you do if it wasn't a male? Hypothetically, what would you do if it was a female who had that top score? And for those who know, and I just, they're like, you totally made us mess up, blah, blah, blah. I didn't make you do anything, I'm just asking you, what would you do if it wasn't a male who had the top score? What would you do? And so envision 1990s New Jersey teenagers, and then, me. And so I'm in a whopping elementary school, almost ready to get to middle school, Why would you say that? Why would you say that, like, there's only, us guys that come in here, we're totally whatever. And yet I'm still leaning against this. I have longer hair at the time, and I'm like, but I'm not a male. I'm a female. So I'm just wondering, what would you do? And so, these three guys, because nobody ever played Dazzler except for me. Usually, I can't say that there wasn't somebody who played Dazzler, but was as it was. They just kind of, what do you think how could you say that? What would make you think that a girl could ever have the top score? Hypothetically. What would you do? What, you got a problem with a female being all tippity-tap, huh? Got a problem with that? And so, that's impossible! No girl could ever, whatever. And so this one time, this because I had seen these three a multitude of times in the arcade. They were one of those guys who know what I'm talking about in reference to the arcade area, specifically in the mall. because there are certain individuals who would know this particular type, and it's like, hey, I got my quarter. Or technically quarters, it was I think it was 50 cents or maybe $1 at the time to play. And I was like, hey, you guys wanna see who, you just seem like you need a little, education on this. I don't wanna bruise your egos too bad, but it's okay. I have a little bit of time. If you wanna, whatever. And, oh, sure, little girl, we'll go easy on you. Bad choice of words. Oh, wait, what is the name of the top one? Bad. Yeah, bad choice of words to call you a girl. Little girl is a really bad choice of words. So these guys, they're all like, whatever, you're not anything. It's like, no, it's fine, it's fine. It's cool. We'll put your quarters in. Come on, boys. Oh, you're gonna pick Dazzler, of course, And it's like, Oh, I just saved your life. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, what's wrong? Why can't you keep up? Come on, if you would actually move instead of going that way on the screen, we could actually go do something. What's wrong with you? For those who know. And so, are you going to put in more quarters, or do I need to continue saving what, sort of whatever. Well, these guys, they kind of, how are you doing? By the time all of their quarters are done, I'm just still going on, going to the next level, going to the next level, going to the next level, so on. It's like, oh look, I'm gonna beat my top score. B, A, B, because I'm a badass. That's right. It's okay. It's like Mortal Kombat mixed with like Mario Brothers and stuff. It's okay. It's alright, guys. Lion King, totally whatever at the end. Oh, I just can't wait to be queen. And these guys, for those especially who know, because there is a distinctive difference. Little girl, I already told you, don't be calling me that. Don't be calling me little girl. Well, the guy who ran the arcade, Susan, come here. No. You come in here every now and then, and you just... This is the best entertainment ever. You do know that for me, right? You know that when you come in here, it's the best entertainment ever. Why? Well, there's those reasons. And so... It's all good, whatever. So, in regards of other factors, as far as how the internet was developing in the 1980s, for those who were a part of that, because you'd have to know those situations, again, my biological mother worked at Prudential doing information technology in the 1980s. And so for those in the years, most specifically, of 2020 into 2021 and now in 2022, during the situations, you know that your children are a part of certain things because of the way certain factors have been. So back in the 1980s into the 1990s, that was common. My biological mother actually had been on call for coding back in the late 1980s into the 1990s. We actually had an actual internet in the house in New Jersey. because of that particular style of coding back then. So, while most people know about the internet more so in the 1990s, that's stuff that back as a child I knew about. So this clarifies in reference to in 1998 when having been moved from New Jersey to Illinois. I am not going to assist with coding! No! I am not willing to utilize this net zero. No! No! It's not even AOL! Not even America Online! No! I don't know! What do you... So parents and grandparents now who are like, why is there no internet, cell phones, or whatever? 1998. No, I refuse! I will not be a part of this! This is unacceptable! Which I'm sure there are plenty who can recognize that. No, we had Tamagotchis in first grade! No! I can't believe this! No! I don't want to have anything to do with that! No! I will not assist with coding! No! They don't even have an arcade in the Springfield or Spring Hill Mall? No! They will not be a part of this! This is unacceptable! I can so those who have children who have cell phones and stuff like that, you understand. This was 1998 for me. You go and move us from New Jersey to here? There's not even an arcade? I don't even, why? No. So sure, there was the development of the internet, more people were utilizing it, but by then it was one of those, by the time of 1998, I had already done coding and stuff. And sure, okay, I had my first email, Peppermint, at the time. But it was one of those, and that was at Jackie's house. She had been at St. John Vianney High School. There's Nick Palazzolo as far as that's concerned. It's like, I don't really want to... So like, it was funny regarding St. John Vianney High School, especially with Nick Palazzolo. So for those who know about the St. John Vianney High School bus ride situation, well, he had said he was going to do a website and stuff like that, and it's like, I don't recommend that. You better be careful, because you don't know what's gonna, whatever. And Nick Palazzolo had been like, whatever, Susan, you don't know, you don't understand about anything when it comes to that. And it's like, I do actually, you need to be careful. You need to be extremely careful with that, because you have no idea how that's been laid out. And he was just, no, whatever. The irony back then, it was one of those, you don't understand, I like totally have a crush on you, but like, if you actually, whatever, you're such a, and so, but I have to go take care of things, and I'm, whatever, but yeah, and so it was as it was. But back then, you could see the difference between the in-person, face-to-face in-person, regarding biological adults, before you could actually see that in the teenagers, and so on and so forth. So in those time frames, I noticed how people were disassociating themselves because they couldn't see, literally, how it was impacting their lives. It was one of those, things were becoming more and more easy to just be lazier and lazier in comparison. And with as many people who were preferring games in comparison to actual social interactions, then there was that. And so, fast forward, I had my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 during basic training. I woke up in Texas. At Medical Hold Unit, I was giving advice in reference to the technology devices. People had their opinions as far as I was concerned, and it was, no, you need to understand, and so what I could do, where I could assist, It was, no, you need to take a look at this in comparison to this. You need to look at this in comparison to this. And it was as it was, not just in the year 2000, but onward. Well, I wound up off of the military installation. I've already gone into that as far as that's concerned. Pregnant with my son in the year 2001 officially, and my ex-in-laws now regarding that, okay, it was the legal whatever, but the second and final separation from my now dead ex-husband, their relative that died, we didn't consider each other spouses. That was my ex-husband, I was his ex-wife. We didn't have that sort of connection. Well, my ex-in-laws, they had their opinions. So where one set of individuals in that particular translation, meaning my ex-brother-in-law and one of my ex-sisters-in-law, pretty much were like, yeah, no, they're not going to get back together because that's it. You know, they knew how it was because of the situations during the time frame. What I had dealt with to a degree of certain situations. And a bunch of the nieces and nephews, they had, it was kind of like, for those who understand the divorced family situation, you know, of course they were torn, because, especially the ones in the area of Texas and Oklahoma, where it was, well, they saw how he was. And they knew that I was it was, you literally could see this in the reference of the single mom doing what's best as possible, but I wouldn't discuss things, not just in front of my own son and my own daughter, but that included when it came to my nieces and nephews, because similarly, despite them not, it was a weird dichotomy in that reference, but because of not wanting to cause any needless problems to their development, despite some of the situations they saw, so there's the Home Depot reference in like 2007, where some of my nieces and one of my nephews had seen the level that it had been, along with that particular ex-sister-in-law of mine. They knew that that was not what other people in regards of my ex-in-laws tried to portray. They tried to understand, and it was, I'm not going to go into this. So similarly, when it comes to my son and my daughter, I wouldn't discuss that with any of my nieces or my nephew, because it was one of those, I want you to be capable, similarly regarding my own son and my own daughter, I want you to be capable to have your own thought process, your own opinions. I don't want you to fall into a trap regarding certain viewpoints. So over time, you will be capable to figure things out. I'm not going to be that type of, whether in this particular reference regarding my son and my daughter, I'm not going to be that type of a mom that I saw growing up in New Jersey, in the tri-state area, for those who know what I'm referring to. Because I watched people that I went to school with who dealt with that, and it was like, that's not for you to deal with as a child. You're supposed to have a childhood. Despite what I was dealing with, you know. And then in regards of my ex-in-laws, it was, I'm being respectful in regards of your dead relative. I know that you know that it was as it was, but in this particular reference, I'm not willing to, because these children are under the age of 18 years old biologically. They don't need to be focused on that. They need to be focused on their education. They need to be focused on their own personal development as best as possible. So, you know, it was one of those, it was as it was. So my eldest niece, regarding my ex-sister-in-law, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, she knew that she could ask me anything. She knew that I wouldn't tolerate certain things But she knew that if she asked me a question, I would answer honestly. She knew that I wasn't going to do certain things because usually when she asked me a question, it had to do with health. It had to do with something in those regards compared to the stereotypical situations regarding teenage stuff. So she knew that if she asked me a question, I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. She knew if she asked me a question that she was going to get the honest answer whether or not she liked it. So same thing with her sister. Their brother, on the other hand, he was very shy. He was more accustomed to the technology in comparison to interpersonal discussions in those references. So you take in consideration the difference to my ex-brother-in-law and his wife and her son and 2 daughters. And they had lived in Oklahoma. Well, those particular references was more along the lines of you need to be careful with certain things. I did what I could in reference to, okay, I know about my ex-brother-in-law's first wife and those particular types of situations, which I wasn't willing to be similar in any ways. I think her name was Carrie or whatever, and it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna be a part of that particular aspect. I know what the stereotypical view is in those particular regards. Those who have been in the Army and been stationed, whatever, you know certain references in those regards. You don't have to be in the Army, but you know those references regarding the field. And so it's one of those, okay, it is what it is. And so didn't want to cause any issues conversely regarding his wife or his second wife at that point. And it's like, I'm not getting involved with certain factors. And so those particular nephew and nieces learned that similarly, I wouldn't tolerate certain things. They could ask me questions, I would answer honestly, but I also wouldn't play games. So when they tried to be snippy, it was one of those, and let me educate you with words like that, done, as far as that's concerned. Not playing your games. I don't think I haven't been around small towns. I did get moved from New Jersey to Illinois, nowhere near Chicago, so I know that sort of type of situation. I know how that goes. My ex-sister-in-law regarding my ex-brother-in-law's wife, her youngest daughter had said that she thought I was overweight when I had literally just delivered my daughter, like maybe 2.5, 3 months before. And it's one of those, I think that you need to not focus on what my physical is in comparison. Additionally, I don't think that you need to give your opinion to me when I didn't ask for it in those particular references. And so her mom led into her as far as what is this, as far as that's concerned. So then there's my other ex-sister-in-law, which I only met a total of 3 times, which is an irony when you take in consideration of the minimum amount of times at Disney, and it's a small world. And so the first time I met her and her 2 daughters from Georgia had been when David had gone to Air Force basic training just before his graduation, and my original blue ID card situation that I brought up. And the candlelight coffee house situation and all that. The second time was at her dead brother's funeral, and the third time was at her dead father's funeral. Those were the only times that I had ever met her. That was it. Same thing when it came to her 2 daughters, Sandra Marie Osteen and Ariel Nicole Osteen. Didn't have any patience for them in the slightest. There was no, so in comparison to my ex-sister-in-law, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, and her children, and my ex-brother-in-law and his wife's children, where I had patience, I had absolutely no patience when it came to Mary's two daughters. And so mainly Brianna Marie and Marissa Marie had to explain to Sandra Marie Osteen and Ariel Nicole Osteen that no, doesn't play games. So in the first time, or technically the second time of having met, the Chief Warrant Officer 3 situation and how that went, and those two, in reference to Sandra Marie and Ariel Nicole, had tried to get whatever in those references. There was the situation in the office with the Dress Blues picture regarding that, in conjunction to afterwards, where I wouldn't allow any of my ex-in-laws to cause any problems to the Chief Warrant Officer 3. And it was, hey, let's go for a walk, because, we'll discuss this, because obviously these females are far too over-emotional, and let's go over what needs to be gone over as far as the details are concerned. I'm not going to play any games with you. I will tell you the truth. You ask me what you need to ask me, I will answer, so on and so forth. And so when we stepped outside, it was one of those, this is what is going to happen, and we will talk about it as soon as all of my ex-in-laws go back in the building. So I informed this Chief Warrant Officer 3 that my ex-in-laws were first going to send out the nieces and nephews. They were going to try to hide as we walked through the grounds. And then afterwards, my two ex-sisters-in-law would try to do the same thing. And I told the Chief Warrant Officer 3, we will talk about anything except what you need to speak with me about until those people go back inside and do not bother us. I don't care how long it takes, I will wear them down. And so the Chief Warrant Officer 3 was like, oh, okay, he got his cigar out, I got my cigarettes out, and we went walking. And it took about half an hour before finally the last ones went back inside. And at that point in time, I looked over at the Chief Warrant Officer 3. Now that we are alone, what is it that you would like to ask me? I'm going to guesstimate that you have looked into my file and know who I am. And the Chief Warrant Officer 3 goes, yes, and I was not expecting it at this level. Well, let's go for a walk some more, and you can ask me what you need to ask me, and I will answer. And so that was how that went. And took care of things the way I took care of things, and the situations were as the situations were. And my ex-in-laws, mainly the females, had their issues when it came to Grandpa. He was like, well, she's the one and only executrix. So what she says goes. He had laid it out when it came to at the house, because it was one of those, Susan was labeled as the one and only executrix. There's no going around that. No matter what, and Grandpa had flat out explained to my ex-sisters-in-law and their children, if you try to subvert her, she will overrule you each and every time, because she has the authority to. Period. If you and Grandpa went into that, you will respect her decisions. You may not like her decisions. It does not matter what you think. Grandpa Nichols, he stood up. He had this whole kit and caboodle as far as situations were concerned. My ex-sisters-in-law's children, mainly Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, her two daughters, oh no, Grandpa, you don't know. And Grandpa Nichols, you will be educated. You will learn. What Susan says goes, period, and end of story. You will accept it. If you make any attempt to try to subvert it, you will lose, period. Accept it, know your lane, stay there. Remember the 5 P's, and that's it. Grandpa Nichols, he put his foot down. He wasn't willing to deal with when it came to quite a few things. So fast forward in 2009, in regards of my scuba diving, I have my plans to go out to the Florida area, go to Boca. Actually stayed in Boca, cause you know, gotta, cause Boca's beautiful. And the secondary aspect of the last top 3 of going to the Florida Keys, because, you know, that's where the Vandenberg had the boat rides to go out to. So, you know, there is that. And so, but stopped in Georgia for my son and my daughter, not for any other reasons. So my son and my daughter could actually have a point in time where they did not have a funeral situation regarding that particular ex-in-law of mine. Well, there's the online social media situation. And she's out in Macon, Georgia, when it came to not just her whatever, but it also in regards of her 2 daughters. And her 2 daughters were in high school and middle school or whatever equivalent of. And so get out to Georgia from Texas. At that point in time, I already saved the one guy's life. Well, technically all the other scuba divers that were on that dive. However, that particular individual, as far as when he had caught the poofy fish. And it was one of those, you know, responsible scuba diver. He was in the wrong area, because a responsible scuba diver, you're going to be within a certain distance of. This is the reason why, when it came to my particular training, it was my way. Because I wasn't willing to deal with certain things. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I knew scuba divers. I knew plenty of different types of scuba divers. I didn't know what they were called, especially after having woken up from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 for a while. But I had known scuba divers. I mean, New Jersey is on a coastline. So I knew military scuba divers. I knew law enforcement scuba divers. I did know some civilian recreational scuba divers that would go to Florida, because duh. Maybe that's why it's called Florida, because duh. I suppose I could joke. And so it's one of those, I don't have the patience for certain things that some people do. Especially when it comes to scuba diving, because of having grown up going out to the Atlantic area of the ocean. Not just in reference to my own work, more along the lines of the simplicity of how vicious the Atlantic area of the ocean is along the New Jersey coastline. It's not a soft water. It is extremely strong. As a child, I had no problem going out to when the waves were going to roll in. I would start before going and swimming in certain areas where the waves, before they actually came over, were at my shoulder. So where the base water line was at my shoulders. Those who know that particular current out in the Atlantic, 9 people out of 10 won't go past their ankles to knee area. I would run out just to stand there. I just, of course I'd go swimming as well, but I would test my own strength just by standing. In that area, the waves would come over and I would make sure to keep my feet on the ground for those who know that particular area. And it didn't matter. If I planted my feet, I was standing my ground. And so I'd deal with whatever, and then if I had to jump up to the surface, to breathe. Because when those waves start rolling in, how they can be. And so it's okay, fine, whatever. I do different things to test myself as a child because of what I was working on, because of what I had dealt with, what I had seen. A bunch of people didn't believe me during those time frames, and it was one of those, at some point you're gonna. It just is as it is. I'm doing all sorts of stuff for myself, and I know what I need to do for myself. I know how I need to train myself. And so for those who know the temperature of the waters, it doesn't matter if it's summertime or not, it's still cold. It's just the fact. You are literally immersed in the oceanic waters. So it's one of those, okay. There were points in time where I'd come out of the ocean for lunch, as far as camp, and my lips were the color of my dress. And, my camp counselors would be, Susan, what's going on? And it's like, I was testing myself. I was preparing. And, do you know this, that, and that's nice. I don't care. I have work to do. I'm preparing. This is before being invited to Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. I am preparing. I am going to take care of stuff. I have stuff to do. I go save the world. It's a child thing. I would go save the world. I'd totally be whatever, and then, so what are you going to do? I can make the joke in that reference. And so in regards of out in Georgia, it was one of those, okay, David would go off to Warner Robins Air Force Base and do that sort of stuff. And it was similar to my childhood. I dealt with garbage regarding his wife, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, and the two daughters, Sandra Maria Osteen and Ariel Nicole Osteen. It was no different than my biological sister, just split in two at that reference. And, I deal with, they had I think it was a Mastiff. And it was like, it's a big whatever. And, Susan, that dog drowns. And then there's the three of you. I can deal with this one. Sort of thing, like, he's okay, and then there's you. So I'll hang out with, whatever the Mastiff's name was. Susan, he's gonna get drowned all over you. Well, it's better than speaking with the three of you, so I'll go and isn't that right, boy? Go spin that big old Mastiff around, and because there was the wood floor sort of thing. What's up? Sort of thing, and so, which is an irony, because in 2019, I had stopped by a guy in his wife's house and stuff like that. They had, a Great Dane, a Basset Hound, a Pit Mix, and stuff like that, and Great Dane, and just, that was a smaller version. And the Mastiff, and it's like, it's a big baby. No big deal. I gotta get prepared anyway for my work stuff, so is what it is. And so in Georgia, in 2009, I was, why isn't this male, he's being such a stupid male, sort of thing. And it's like, he caught a puffer fish in the ocean. It's like, part of me is like, this son of a, having the nerve to freaking, what is this stupid male crap, fucking whatever. And it's like, but at the same time, it's like, I gotta prepare. I have stuff that I have to take care of. So I didn't have the patience in regards of, during that trip, if he had actually been intelligent, he would have actually responded instead, because there is that social media situation. You can't expect to go only through the social media and have that capacity of maintaining that in-person, face-to-face, in-person connection. Because if you are not willing to actually do the work, you on your own choice, in my opinion, are willing to allow that to dwindle in comparison. I'm a very particular individual, and so it's one of those, whatever it is. So those two daughters of Mary, they wanted me to go with them out to the Waffle House. And alright, fine. They wanted me to meet some of their little high school friends and stuff like that. Okay, so Marissa and I went out to the Waffle House with Sandra Marie Osteen and Ariel Nicole Osteen. This is in 2009 in July. And so we're out at the Waffle House, and these different teenagers, mainly males. Oh, what you doing up in Georgia? Well, I'm gonna go do this. Oh, well, you had Sandra told us about this, and Sandra told us about that, and yes, this, that, the other, and explained a bunch of things. Oh, and then, well, Ariel told us about this too, and yeah, Ariel told us about that, and Ariel told us about this, and Ariel told us about that. Let me clarify. Let me explain this, let me explain that, so on and so forth. And one of the males, I can't remember his name, well, what you gonna go scuba dive for? Well, why you go and do that? You know, it's in the ocean, don't you? Yes, I do. But what do you think is in the ocean? And, oh, well, there's some fish up in the ocean. Yes. Yes, there are various species of, and so one of the other males, Susie, I know someone who goes fishing up in the ocean. Okay, fishing is different than scuba diving. Yeah, but you know, sometimes you have to get that scuba diving gear, and he said he sees some fish, and it's like, yes, there are different types of fish depending on, and you do, and so then Sandra Marie Osteen, you need to be paying attention, Mom, over here. You know that it's like, oh, why are you doing that? Could you not have nails on a chalkboard sounding voice while you complain? And so then it turned into the, oh, Susan, you say this is Mike and Georgia. Do you see how ghetto it is up here? We are sitting in a Waffle House. You have a name brand chain store. And you have a McDonald's and a Burger King? Yeah, no, that's not the ghetto. No. No. So Ariel, no, I am Susan. No. Mike and Georgia is so good. We so good up in Mike and Georgia. Just sat there, and it was one of those, may I get some more coffee, please? And the waitress said, I appreciate it, thank you. No, children, you are not in the ghetto. No. I am Susan. You don't know what the ghetto is. It's like I was born and raised in New Jersey. Yeah, but up in New Jersey, where you from? And it's like, oh, so you did some research in regards to the demographics. Thinking that you know. Go ahead, little girls. Let's see how this goes. And, oh, well, where you from? You don't know nothing about no hood. You don't know nothing. I grew up going to the 5 boroughs in New York City. I know the difference. Oh, well, that's not no Jersey. Except there's areas in New Jersey I grew up going to that would be far more closely aligned to like downtown Atlanta at night on a weekend after about midnight during the daytime. Oh, no. You don't know nothing about I done looked up New Jersey. Yes, you may have. Except where you probably looked up and or spoke with my biological sister, which is a very different background. Oh no, we the same. So Ariel and Sandra tried to explain how the exact same. No. You and your sister do not have the exact same upbringing, even in your own two situations. Brianna and Marissa have two different backgrounds as far as their own upbringing. In comparison, there is a 4-year difference. Your mother and your Aunt Susie, both of them have different upbringings as far as the time frame. Do not pretend this is in the middle of the Waffle House. And so the males are just like, well, you know, yo, Wayne said, Miss Susan, she letting you know, Miss Susan letting you know. Oh shit, you don't know anything. I'm just totally letting her know she don't know what thug is. She don't know what thug. We took thug. I've been naked. So where I could have been more educative, instead I just was as the boss is, as those who understand that. I just kind of just drink my coffee. No, that's fine. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna, no. And so then Ariel Nicole Osteen and Sandra Marie Osteen tried to somehow think that they could out-thug the situation. And it was one of those, why would you even try? What would make you think that's intelligent? Oh no, I ain't Susie, you don't know how thug we be up in my. And so while sitting there, it's one of those, oh my, why would you even want to try? Don't you have anything that you could actually do with your existences? Because I'm going to let you know right now, if you do not fix and repair yourselves instantaneously, don't ever think that there is something you can clear up on the internet, because if you post certain things, I'm going to let you know that you might think that there could be companies who could clear that out, and there will be a day where that will still come forward. I promise you, the only way that you can actually clear your own reputation is doing it yourself. If you do not, and you want to halfway do it by, if there just so happens to be a point in time where companies do, they will not be allowed to. They will make their money, and then it will be as it will be, because there is going to be a point in time where everything is cleared up in truth, because nobody who actually knows anything regarding technology doesn't have the awareness that there will be the point in time where everything comes forward. And so the two of them, as far as later during that trip before going out to Florida, oh no, I Susan, we can do whatever, because this and that, and it's like, no you can't. You think you can. This is not a game. You are mistaking your video games for real life. You are mistaking that you think you can separate yourself when utilizing these technology devices. So I made attempts to explain this to Mary. And Mary's response was, "Oh, Susan, you don't know anything when it comes to technology. You don't know." It's like, but I do. And the referencing that she tried hinting about my blue ID card. It's one of those, you have no idea about my background at all. We are not friends. I want you to understand that. You might think so because you might read something. I haven't ever gotten to know you. And then is where Mary Evangeline Nichols was the, "Oh, but I know so much about you." See, that's the problem with your type. You don't seem to understand that where I come from, your type of female has caused so many needless problems that when it comes to what you think you know, in comparison to what I comprehend, I am warning you. This is not a game. This is not a simulation. This is not a test. This is real life. I want you to understand that. You need to take the knowledge and understand that while you think this sort of stuff that certain types have thought were going to work out in their favor, it will not. And I want you to understand that. And so she had her opinions as far as certain things were concerned, and it was, I don't think you understand. So before leaving Georgia to go to Florida, I let David know, you need to be careful because there, and I explained basic training to David. I said, there was a point in my basic training, before my head injury, Drill Sergeant Parsley had discussed in the classroom setting the needless problems that came from dependence. And a lot of individuals, you can refer to Susie and Mary's brother Tony, to his first wife Carrie, as far as certain references. You have Mary and Sandra and Ariel. So Drill Sergeant Parsley during basic training had explained in front of the class as far as our particular unit, or squad, because there was Alpha Squad and then Bravo Squad and Charlie Squad and Delta Squad, and that was how it was. So the equivalent, for those who know Medical Hold Unit and the original building that I had been in reference to the year of 2000, there was Alpha Company, Bravo Company, Charlie Company, Medical Hold Unit, Delta Company, Echo Company, and Foxtrot Company. So in reference to during basic training in the Bravo Squad, regarding Drill Sergeant Parsley, and Drill Sergeant Gonzalez had been in and out of the classroom as far as that was concerned. Drill Sergeant Parsley explained that there were a bunch of dependents, that a whole bunch of the active duty National Guard and reservists had noticed certain problems. And so I rose my hand, and, what, right? And it's, well, what do you mean needless problems? Because shouldn't the dependents be held accountable for their choices? And Drill Sergeant Parsley had explained that some of these dependents would cause needless problems. They felt that their lives were boring, and instead of getting employment or doing something, they would stir up drama on a military installation. Some of them would go to the P Extra and shoplift a, name brand bag. And then the sponsor, whoever was active duty, National Guard or reservist, would be called into their company commander's office or brigade commander's office and be informed of these situations because of their dependents being stupid. And so I asked, well, what did the spouses do? And Drill Sergeant Parsley said, well, some of them, they took the heat because that's what occurs. They all had to take the heat regarding their commander, no matter what. But some of the sponsors decided to try to defend their dependents. And I stood up at that point and I said, why would you ever defend a dependent if they knowingly made a choice that was unacceptable? If there is a reason that maybe they didn't have the understanding, that's one thing, that's a slap on the wrist. However, in regards to that particular factor, it goes straight to the Ten Commandments. And so those particular types of dependents should be held accountable to the UCMJ standards. Because it was known by my particular basic training that I had the background that I had. All of the drill sergeants had known about my invitation regarding Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. I actually got called a squid-ish. That's what I actually got called, a squid-ish. Because you didn't make it to be in a squid, but you did in an ish sort of way. You're a jarhead-ish, but since it wasn't the actual Marine Corps, so are you a crayon eater, and sort of whatever, and I just, during basic training, you just deal with that, because that just is as it is, and, having the different drill sergeants as far as, yeah, okay, yeah, no, and yeah, sure, I mean, whatever. And so, it was as it was. It's just one of those, hey, well, sure. But I didn't get to go. So that's why you're ish and blah 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 and rah rah rah, and it's like, yeah, sure, They wondered why I couldn't cry. When it came to certain things, it's like, if you meet my biological father, you'll understand. And then if you meet my biological mother, you'll understand why that is, because I can't stand crying. And then if you meet my biological sister, well, then you just get the reiteration regarding my biological mother. And so unless I have an actual real reason to cry, well, if you meet my biological father, you'll understand. Have you ever heard, if you want something to cry about, I'm going to give you something to cry about? Drill Sergeant Parsley and Drill Sergeant Gonzalez both went, yeah, we've heard that before. Yeah, well, I grew up hearing that crying was a weakness. And it's kind of like, if you could actually tell Anna that and tell Patricia that in comparison to what I'm dealing with, that'd be great. I shouldn't have to deal with this because of their whatever. You should probably focus your attention there in comparison to telling me what I already know. I already know how they are. I'm just saying, you don't need to tell me that. I have plenty of experiences, by the time of like 3rd grade. I don't need to. I know how weak Patricia is. You don't need to remind me. I got the memo. You don't need to remind me how weak Anna is as far as all those tears. I'm just saying. So as a real quick fast forward, there was a guy up in Washington State. And for his birthday, I got him this cup. And it had a picture. It was kind of like a mocking of, whatever. It said liberal tears. And my biological mother and my biological sister were so proud to vote for 44, only under the aspects of his ethnic background in comparison to anything he stood for. So, those particular types, I was like, here you go, Ray, what you think? That's what it is. So, going back in regards, and that was, I think, 2016, maybe 2017. Anyway, so here's a precursor. Here you go. So anyway, which is funny because during, I think it was Christmas time, I had cooked a bunch of pumpkin pies and caramel pecan pies, because it's a thing I do and stuff like that. It's kind of funny because there was a guy, and I didn't know any of his allergies at all, and so I walk in and I was like, here you go, Merry Christmas and stuff like that, and went and gave the other pies around, and it's like, he goes, did you know that I'm allergic to pecans? I was like, no, I didn't, but it just seemed like it was more ideal. It's just whatever as far as that's concerned. I like to cook, so is what it is. And of course, my son had plenty, because he likes pumpkin pies, but he also likes the caramel pecan pie. But he had, I think for that Christmas, he had 5 or 6 pies. Like, yes, I know. When I cook, I have to make, I know. I know how it is, I know. My daughter, she liked the caramel pecan pie stuff more in comparison to the pumpkin pies. I was like, that's fine, it's no problem. And so, in those references, in regards, that's in regards of 2020 for that particular, I think, 2020, 2021 for that particular reference, after having been out in Georgia during that point in time, and then magically, but not, well, here's that social media situation. So I was Facebook Live a situation at a church in Georgia, and magically I get a phone call from my ex-mother-in-law, as though hypothetically my ex-sister-in-law in Georgia and her 2 daughters, what's I doing up in Georgia? Well, because I don't want to speak with you, and I don't care to, because you're not who I want to associate with. It's a personal choice. Remember, there were only a total of 3 times, and then, whatever, so I don't have to actually answer to you no matter how much you wish, because you're not important to me. You haven't ever been important to me in those particular references because of your own choice to choose to disassociate yourself through only doing things in the social media way in comparison to actually getting to know me. So while you think that you've gotten to know me in that way, and to a degree, yes, I'm not interested in the ways that you are, because I know better. I do not consent to certain references because I'm not interested. So that's just the facts. I don't care that I've been involved in what I've been involved in. I haven't hidden having been involved in the lifestyle. But in that same capacity that doesn't mean you are entitled to anything. In any capacity. That is an entitlement issue. So, in regards of who I had been dating at the point in time, and having gone out before the situations, if those particular individuals decided to involve themselves where they didn't have any right to, we weren't anything more than what I particularly had arranged. I had very much let them know that they were kept at an arm's length on purpose when it came to that particular situation. So for those who don't understand, the tri-state area especially people who are born and raised in the tri-state area, they have a very specific view as to certain types of accents. Because depending on your accent, and I don't mean overseas, I mean southern Midwestern sort of situations. So females, most specifically, they're as they are. So, especially where I was born and raised and grew up going to, it was like just a constant throughout the year. You'd have these, oh, if I can make it in New York, I can make it anywhere, sort of individuals. In my dance school, I was the favorite of the teacher, sort of thing. And so, as far as certain areas around Broadway, not just on Broadway, but because of where they'd have the locations nearby, as far as the casting calls and that sort of stuff. Oh, I was good. You should work on your accent. They don't want to hear that on the stage. And, there were females, when walking by the area that would, oh, you don't know, I'm gonna wow the director. You don't know, he's gonna see me and he's just gonna be phenomenally whatever. And it's like, yeah, you got a pipe dream now, don't you? Sort of thing, like, you have no idea. And so people such as myself, we don't mind the Southern accent, so long as you understand certain factors. So when up in the New York City area or tri-state area, because you've got the fashion district, you've got other areas as far as colleges and schools, as long as you're respectful, that's one thing. When you walk around and you're like, oh look, I know that I'm good. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. You have no idea how annoying it is to hear that. So there's the irony of people who have had issues with me going on about, the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. It's like, yeah, well, I grew up dealing with some of your types. And so I don't really feel bad at all, because I'm the one who actually deals with this. So I'm the one who deals with the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. If you were truthful with me and informed me that you actually knew, I wouldn't have to repeat myself. Especially in regards to the in-person, face-to-face, in-person factors. As far as, I'm the one who dealt with the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain and the after effects of. And so if you were honest with me, I wouldn't have to repeat myself, because you're not the one who deals with it. Just because of you being tired of that in reference to certain situations, it's one of those, well, sweetheart, let me explain something to you. I deal with memory deficits and cognitive disorders. So if you would just be honest with me, in comparison, I wouldn't have to repeat myself. You know that I deal with headaches and migraines, so if you were just honest with me, I wouldn't have to repeat myself. It's common sense in those references. But in the tri-state area, there are those who specifically know this particular type of female, where, oh, well, I was doing this and doing whatever, and then, you wonder why we don't want to hear your accent in the Northeast. Because most people who are born and raised in the tri-state area in the overall aspect, and have, especially those who were in high school and college that learned this, that southern sort of female that does that. Oh, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, sort of thing. Usually a needless amount of drama occurs. Usually the stirring up in person, face-to-face in person, of, how they choose to, it's the irony. People in the 1980s and 1990s in the tri-state area, in the reference of biological adults, they would dress appropriately. So they wouldn't wear certain types of clothing, because when it came to business, work is work. you didn't do certain things. If people were to think in reference to specifically those time frames, it was usually these Southern and Midwestern females that would, be a bit more revealing in their clothing attire compared to females who were either born and raised in the tri-state area or who had gone to high school into college in the tri-state area, because in order to be taken seriously about your work, whatever your employment of, with the exception of a few in those references, you maintained a certain level of composure. So while, yes, you could go in reference to the performance aspects, well, yes, you wear certain types of attire for performances. If you are looking at being taken seriously, so in regards of the technology sector, you wore certain respectable attire. That's just how it was and is. And especially in regards to certain other factors of whatever professional references, you dressed appropriately. So if you wanted to be taken seriously, it didn't matter what your hairstyle or hair color. It didn't matter if you had tattoos. There were those who didn't really necessarily look highly upon them, but as long as they were tasteful, you weren't really looked down upon in comparison to certain types. So a lot of the issues that occurred in the tri-state area usually had to do with these Southern types or Midwestern types, that the irony of irony, they'd have their clothing a bit shorter in comparison to modesty. They would, instead of having something that was a respectable shoulder line, they would have a different set of clothing. And it was as it was, and it got misconstrued, especially in the 1990s, because it was really these Southern types that would then complain about being cold. And it was one of those, or Midwesterners, but mainly Southern, and they'd complain about being cold. So that way they could, as far as what the perception was, to, you could whatever, and males being as they are, fine, here, whatever. And so then that stirred up needless problems with the tri-state area females, because it's one of those, why are you going to go do that for that? And you know damn well that she's doing that in comparison to taking things seriously. So then females in the tri-state area dealt with these whatevers, and then the males usually were, she doesn't, except she does. She knows better. She knows that she is above the Mason-Dixon line. She knows that in this area there is snow. She knows that there's this. Don't pretend. And then, it's just a Southern mile sort of garbage. And so it was one of those, no. So in basic training, which is what I was explaining to David, Drill Sergeant Parsley had very much asked me. He asked the entire class, but because I stood up, and it was known that I had stood up multiple times for what was correct. It didn't matter. If it was correct, I didn't care. So I wasn't willing to stand by and do nothing. So I've given the reference in regards of the female who had braids, and explained that by the UCMJ standards, that's her natural hair. So by the natural hair standards of the UCMJ, her having the braids was within the UCMJ. Did it matter that I know what my skin tone is? I'm not blind. I know that I'm not African American. I know that. I comprehend that. I do have a cousin which I don't mean in the East Coast, West Coast sort of way, because there's a difference between a cousin and a cuz. Huge difference. I got plenty of cousins, but I do have my cousin, and her being half Chinese and half African American, her mom is my great Aunt Helen. My great Aunt Helen, Jade's mom, was born in China. Her dad, whose family is from the Harlem area, which doesn't really mean anything in certain references because you have a cultural diversity. But there are certain areas of Harlem, especially in the 1980s and 1990s, there are these little pockets. So you have, like in Manhattan, you have Little Italy and Chinatown. Well, there's certain areas. And so my cousin Jade, not cuz, my cousin Jade is half African American and half Chinese. And knowing the difference in regards of my grandmama and my grandpapa and their hair, I took the stand. I didn't bring up my cousin. I didn't bring up the neighborhood or different areas as far as the other 5 boroughs. I didn't bring up the different areas of New Jersey other than where I was born and raised, but more so I didn't bring up even Philadelphia or Pittsburgh in those references. It was just this is the actual legal standing within the UCMJ. So it's known. And that's just one reference, and that is within the first 24 to 48 hours of me being in basic training. And so it was known that there were other situations, and it wasn't in a, that type of way of, oh, well, I was entitled. No, you're not entitled to anything. According to the UCMJ, this is this. And so there were multiple aspects. So in some of the classes during basic training, other than the road marches and everything, a lot of the times, it was an irony, we would all of a sudden have a class. And, we'd go up to the classroom where there was a huge bulldog in a circle painted on the wall as far as I think it was the mascot or something in that reference. I can't remember what it was, but it had like a little t-shirt on or something. It's all grr, rawr. For those who know that particular area at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and in that particular basic training area, for those who know what I'm referring to, and it had a red collar, if I remember correctly, with spikes on it, I could make a joke. And so, in this reference, though, we would have these classes, and usually at some point in time, either I would raise my hand and or I would be asked. I'd just be called out in the middle of the classroom, and what do you think? Well, according to the UCMJ. Because it was that. We even had we had a huge projection video that we had to watch as far as certain things, and it was one of those, in the 1980s and 1990s, there were these situations. And so going over those particular details, and so I gave this example to David, and it's one of those, there will be a day that dependents will be held accountable for their choices. Because there is no reason that a sponsor should ever have to deal with that, with the exception of if that sponsor knowingly makes the choice to assist. Because that's a different set of problems that Drill Sergeant Parsley and I did discuss. Because usually individuals who had certain types of dependents, that they knew that there were these needless problems that were being stirred up on a base because of those types, there was going to be a day. And whenever that day comes, mind you, this is back in 2009, whenever that day comes, you better brace yourself, because you're not going to be capable to prevent certain things as you think you are. And those particular factors are in where life is going to progress to. So while you might think that you have a stereotypical Southern belle, which stereotypical Southern belle do you think you have? Do you think you have a Southern belle view of a Southern belle? Or do you think you have a Northeast view of a Southern belle? But for those who know, what levels of differences are there? So, while some people didn't necessarily know, because even in regards of that Waffle House situation, Sandra Marie Osteen and Ariel Nicole Osteen tried to, oh, well, this is all right, Susan, except we don't know each other. Except this. Except that. Except I've only met them a total of 3 times before this week. And so those particular males that were at that Waffle House, it was, remember, boys, I only met them 3 times before this week. Keep that in mind. You need to remember that I've only met these 2 and their mother 3 times before this time in 2009. And one of the males, well, why, Miss Susan? Why is that important? And well, it's important because you need to understand and be capable to distinguish the difference. Because while you can learn about as far as the different aspects online, it is a very different situation in person, face to face in person. And that particular male, well, Miss Susan, you do seem exactly the same as far as what's seen online. I can appreciate that. And I do appreciate that you acknowledge that. But what you need to understand is that's me. I cannot speak for every other person. And so while some might be similar in that particular reference, where they're the exact same in person, face to face in person, as they are in social media aspects, there are those that you need to be careful of. Just realistically regarding safety. So take in reference to Sandra Marie Osteen and Ariel Nicole Osteen. Are they acting the same now in regards of that year of 2009 to the way they are in school? And each one of the males did this. That's all you need to know, as far as that's concerned. It's important, because there will be the time where you need to pay attention to that. Because when that time frame comes, you need to be prepared. And so, while I made attempts to explain to Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, your 2 daughters are causing a bunch of needless problems. They actually think that Macon, Georgia is a hood location. They actually think it's the ghetto. I don't know how they think it's the ghetto. I don't know what's wrong as far as that is concerned, but you need to wake them up to that, because that is ridiculous for you to actually have 2 of them thinking that this is the actual ghetto in Macon, Georgia. And the excuses that I got as far as from Marion, it's like, you do not need to be their friend. You need to be a mother. Get it correct. I don't care that they are in high school and you know they're going to get older. No. You're supposed to have been a parent this whole time. Once they are on their own and they're living their own life, yes, you can be a friend, but you are still this in the capacity of if. But you are not acting as a mom. You are not acting as a mother. You are trying to be their friend in comparison because you in yourself are so accustomed to this social media situation. You don't see how important it actually is for that in-person, face-to-face in-person. So here's the situation regarding there's the absentee parent that has been discussed in the news, the political atmosphere. That's not just in reference to the father portion, that's just as similar regarding in reference to the female or the mother portion. If you have the capability of being in person, face to face in person with your child or children, and you choose instead to only do in regards of the social media, what do you think you are educating your child or children? Why would you think that they would have respect for their elders? Why would you think that in what they see in person, face to face in person from their own, would show that? So while yes, you can have the influence where possible regarding whether it's through the example of my official YouTube channel, my official YouTube videos, please do like and subscribe. Yes, you can take the reference in regards of my website, www.susanmealing.com. But remember, in regards of my journal blog, The Ordinary PSA, that is more along the lines of where it makes you think, where it makes you contemplate. While in reference to my official YouTube videos and the lectures, essentially, it is a literal difference for you to be capable to see. Now, yes, I have used my saying in person, face to face, in person with certain individuals during certain times. That doesn't mean or translate to that being a constant. So remember, when it comes to my journal blog entries, those are in reference to whatever the specific topic points are. There are plenty of official YouTube videos of mine through my official YouTube channel. Again, subscribe and like my official YouTube videos. Share the link to my official YouTube videos. And if you're going to comment, please make sure to use etiquette and respect. Because there is that factor of those differences. So it is no different than when you read certain academia papers. For those who understand that, you are supposed to think about the information that you are being presented. So in regards of my journal blog, more so, you have the capacity to actually read the words and think about each one of the questions. So for those who did not do as I did as a child, and the textbooks in each class, and reading the actual textbooks, there are actual questions throughout the textbooks. I know there are those who have had homework in those regards and those situations where it's known. That's kind of a different version. So if you take a metaphor or proverbial view of a college textbook or textbook in general, you can utilize the reference of my official YouTube channel with my official YouTube videos as the main discussionary information, chapter by chapter, the different points in those references, where you can go to my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmealing.com, and those are the questions in a different capacity, where you can review that and genuinely contemplate to yourself, because if you especially take in consideration my saying, what have you heard in musical lyrics? what have you heard and or seen in reference to different television shows, music videos, streaming services, movies, even in regards of different books, as far as certain types. So what is going to actually get you to think and contemplate in comparison to those who understand this, just another situation? Oh, she's no different than whenever you're in front of your whichever legal guardian aspect and they're going on about, and you know this and you know that and da 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 sort of situation. Well, it when you read certain things, sometimes it hits you to pay attention and actually think. And whatever your opinion is, I acknowledge as best as possible, especially with my updates to my website, www.susanmealing.com, in reference to the Ornery PSA. I do what I can to actually bring the knowledge of where my biases are, so that way that's not misconstrued. I do what I can, not in reference of throwing people under the bus in certain proverbial ways, more along the lines of, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. So, in those who are into religious texts, you have these commonalities, you have these different parables throughout these different books and chapters of the Bible, whether you look in the Old Testament or the New Testament. And you have these common names and these commonalities of certain types of what have you. And no matter what, this is something that I didn't understand as a child or a teenager or even a biological adult regarding certain people that didn't really pay attention to the Bible or even the Torah. It's one of those, there are metaphors that are capable to get you to see things in the current time. If you have to actually have a reference point to be capable to internally think about and contemplate your own existence, whether your existence is in person, face-to-face in person, with whichever community, whichever group, and or especially when you take in consideration to the online social media factors, because it's not just where you post something and only one or two people can see, even in reference to messages. Again, I take the reference regarding a cell phone and how it has a camera, and you can have it on your computer, but you still have the capability of taking a picture. It's common sense. You've had digital cameras as well as film cameras for how long? Think about that. So you have these different real situations to take into consideration regarding these facts. Some people who have wished to pretend to play innocent, in comparison, these are the facts. So you can't be innocent unless you actually are. It's important to keep that in mind. You additionally have to take in consideration that where did the first cell phones even originate from? Where did the first computer, and when I say computer, I mean desktop computer, where did that actually originate from? Where did that starting point begin? Sure, there's information on the internet. Sure, there is that. How long was NASA around before the internet? And when I say, when was NASA around, I don't mean the official formation of. What I intend in that particular question, when was NASA first brought forward to an idea to discuss to bring forward to be capable to officialize. It is very easy to do certain paperwork to create a business. It is a whole other situation to have an actual entity within the armed forces of the United States of America. Take this into consideration. How many college, universities, and campuses are there? So when I say that, I refer to not just universities, but community colleges, technical schools, and all of that. Because by technicalities, if you take in consideration my scuba diving and having earned 26 scuba diving certifications, it's technically the equivalent of a technical school. So how many of those are in the United States of America? And how many agencies are there within the United States of America? Whether they are military, law enforcement, fire department, or EMS specifically. I'm going to guesstimate there are far more college campuses, universities, and technical schools, which would include certifications such as those who know the technology sector. There are those certification courses, so you have that as a reference. How many of those are there? And then how many agencies within the United States of America are there regarding the armed forces of the United States of America? So for a law enforcement standpoint, how many precincts of local and state law enforcement are there per state compared to these college campuses, these technical schools, universities, so on and so forth? Then you have the federal aspects. And then you have the obvious, reference of the Pentagon, where you have the Army and the Air Force and the Coast Guard and the Marine Corps and the Navy, but you also take in consideration of NASA and all these other regulations. So what is it as far as a number to take in consideration, and how long is the average? So when did NASA actually first officially begin? Did it begin as a private business sector that then the United States of America was like, and you're a part of this now? Because you're too valuable, you are so much of an asset that this is needed. And if so, how long did that paperwork actually take? Because the official starting point, take in consideration the U.S. Space Force. How long between NASA, as far as the official paperwork, to the time frame? I'll give the example of the Big Blue Book or the Blue Book Project. So from that time frame of NASA to the Big Blue Book, despite certain situations, to the formation of the U.S. Space Force, which was in the year of 2020. So when was the Big Blue Book published? To the time frame of the formation of the U.S. Space Force, compared to the paperwork to actually officialize NASA. That's something you may want to take in consideration as to how many years or decades that it actually took to formulate NASA. So how long would you really think in reference to text messages, emails, social media, all that sort of stuff? What would that consideration actually be? So while I got made fun of for, 10 Commandments and believing in truth and stuff like that, I'm going to guesstimate there's those factors that might make a smidgen more amount of sense. So, those important particulars
especially when you take in consideration additionally. So in the 1900s, around whatever decade it was, around the middle to early, late 1900s, there was this company called Ma Bell. And Ma Bell had been split to AT&T and Western Union. AT&T was the original aspects of Ma Bell. Western Union had worked in certain areas to put in certain lines, but because of all of the patents through Ma Bell, that was as it was. It was the legal factors of those patents. And so as time went on, as far as landlines and electrical lines and later internet lines or cable fiber optic lines, and now as you see with I guess it's mainly Tesla who has the electrical cars and those particular lines, although it works with other vehicles. How long? So all of that combined in combination, when you think about NASA, you take in consideration now in 2022 that AT&T and Verizon Wireless, as well as T-Mobile, have been connected for a while. You know that there is the merger that officializes on the 6th of June 2022. All you need to take in consideration for that merger is as simple as your cell phone. So if you have an iPhone or whatever other type of phones, such as the different Android phones and the Galaxy phones and etc., and how they have started integrating well beyond the bump program, for those who remember in 2010. You have cell phone companies that have more than one type of cell phone. And so you can actually backtrace whenever each company had begun similar to the AT&T aspects. So AT&T was the original company that had the iPhone. Remember, for those who know what I'm talking about, AT&T, you could only get an iPhone through AT&T. Over time, you could get it through T-Mobile and Verizon. What years each individual would know as far as that's concerned. So Sprint, in that particular factor, when did it begin that you could get an iPhone through Sprint? That is actually the time frame when the merger initially first began. It's just finalized officially on the 6th of June, 2022. I would guesstimate. I don't have the paperwork for that. Though it seems common sense to me. So, to sum that up regarding my lecture, what can you say you can think about in that culminative aspect? See, this is why I have done everything I could in person, face-to-face, in person, as well as online, to be truthful. I haven't denied having had issues regarding technology after waking up from my coma after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. I haven't denied the situations in regards to Geek Squad and the accidental warranty programs. I haven't denied these factors. I've brought that forward very truthfully. Whether in person, face-to-face, in person, or in writing. Because of that requirement of knowing that life is going to progress forward and upward. That's the facts. It's been doing that for a while. So there are those in the state of Texas most often where I had given as many warnings as I could. Because that is a very different accent, which people know, in comparison to different areas in other areas of the South. And so, where I could give warnings when there, I gave what warnings I could. But, I look as I do. And there's the after effects of my head injury, and there's other people's opinions as far as what they think, which their opinions are what their opinions are. And in regards of my ex-in-laws, most specifically those out in Georgia, or start from Georgia or whatever, well, where did we actually spend time together in comparison? See, that's something that's important about the filters and Photoshop. That has been needed to be clarified for people to distinguish the difference because of those false impressions in comparison. So that way there's that genuine understanding just on site. So you have Instagram, and Instagram, you know what the average filters are. You have Facebook, and you have the average filters where you know. You don't have that for certain ones. You need that, in my opinion. So that way you're capable to have that distinguishing factor. Because that's important. So that way you have that clarity of understanding. It's one thing to make those dream boards for those who understand. But you have to be capable to understand what it actually is. And with the social media situations, whether you take in regards of different programs and or social media, what is important about that for clarity? I am about life. Life is important. But in life, you need facts. You need genuinity. Because how else do you progress forward? How else can you work towards betterment? It's important, in my opinion. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, listening, and stuff like that. Please do like and share my official YouTube video, subscribe to my official channel, and share the link to my official YouTube video, as well as go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. You guys have a good day.